This episode of Hero Club is supported by our good friends over at Mage Hand Press. Check them out at magehandpress.com and be sure to buy their masterpiece supplement for Dungeons & Dragons in space, Dark Matter. Use the promo code RIFTRATS, all one word, for 15% off. If you like Hero Club, remember to rate and review on your preferred platform and tell your friends. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to Hero Club. I'm Nick Williams.
And I am George Primavera.
George and I have been playing D&D together for years.
Now, a lot of people think you need to be a big, huge nerd boy to play Dungeons & Dragons.
But in reality, you just have to be willing to spend 4 hours of your own time on a weekday trashed on cheap beer cross-legged around a coffee table.
I lost a game of Flip Cup in 2012, so I had to buy all the books and learn how to be Dungeon Master. My dad was disappointed.
Yeah, he was. But after a game or two, we realized that it's actually a really fun and effective way to tell an awesome story.
Yeah, it's like long-form improv, but you kill more people.
Here's what you need to know. George creates a world and the framework for a cool story.
And the players, like Nick, create characters beforehand, all with special abilities, sometimes magical, sometimes not, and they adventure through the story as best they can, trying not to die.
We, the players, roll dice to see if our improvised actions fail or succeed, trying to beat a number in George's head that he promises he doesn't change at will.
But at the table, I am God, my game, my rules.
Okay, so it's as nerdy as you thought. You know what? Just off, man.
Oh,
right off,
all right,
okay?
Nick, maybe don't tell everybody to F off. And it's not that nerdy. I mean, we get rid of all that stupid math, and we add music and sound effects and stuff like that, so, you know, it's cool.
Anyway, these stories do follow a linear plot, so if you want to know what's going on, start at the beginning of any season you like and have fun with it.
Without further ado,
welcome to Hero Club! Yeah!
John B. Darrow and Barlowe Reed take shelter in a shallow cave, dressing their wounds from their bout gone south with the Mayor of Patience. Night has fallen. The chorus of crickets is punctuated by the occasional hoot of an owl. Barlowe is currently assisting John B. in stopping the bleeding out of the long gash in his leg, while the man cradles his side and rubs his head, nursing nasty baseball bat bruises on his ribs and brow.
Leave it, Barlowe. It don't bother me none.
Shut your mouth, you old bastard. You got it pretty terrible from those boys up there. You're bleeding every which way.
Please don't use profanity.
Barlowe begins to wrap up John B.'s leg. Well, you're nothing if not predictable. And then notices he's slipping out of consciousness slightly. Hey, wake up! Wake up, John B. Stay awake for me now. Hey, you remember that time back in the Rough Riders? Our story of when we met Mr. Roosevelt?
Yes, sir. Ugh. Man alive, we were so green.
Yeah, we was. Remember you and I, we was on watch and, terribly jumpy. I'd never seen a Spaniard before in my life. Stories I'd heard spun it like they had 4 arms and bloody sword in each one. And we were sitting there with our rifles, you remember? It was a terribly foggy night.
What?
John B., stay with me now.
Yeah, I remember I said, Barlowe, this fog's so thick you can cut it with a steak knife.
That's right, you did. I remember that now. And, then you remember what happened next?
Yeah, Barlowe, I remember what happened.
John B., remember we saw a figure coming out of the fog there, and we said, hey there, stop or we'll shoot. Remember that?
Yeah, we leveled our rifles at it, and we said, stop or we'll shoot.
'Cause we thought it was one of them Spaniards coming out for a big ambush, right? But it weren't no Spaniard, was it? Was it, John B.?
Nope, no sir, it was Teddy.
It was Mr. Roosevelt himself. You remember what he said?
Yeah, I do, Barlowe. We said, who goes there? And it was like he was just out for a stroll. He looked at us and he said, just performing my necessaries, boys. Keep up the good work. And then he walked right past us back into camp.
Yeah, he did. Now, John B., this part's gonna hurt just a little bit. Barlowe resets John B.'s dislocated shoulder.
Barlowe, what do you mean this next part's gonna...
Barlowe quickly covers John B.'s mouth. Now, don't want to ruin such a personal memory by inviting other guests.
After about an hour of rest, John B. and Barlowe appropriately dress their wounds. John B. returns to 60 points of health, and Barlowe returns to 66. John B. seems to have returned to his normal haggard self after about a 15-minute nap, Barlowe keeping a close watch.
How long's it been?
Just around 15. You went out too long.
That feels about right. Now, Barlowe, if we're gonna continue, is that the kind of display I should be expecting from you from here on out?
What'd you mean?
The kind of display where you try to get me killed by caving a man's head in. What in heaven's name was that, Barlowe?
John B., I'm going to tell you right now, any feller within a 10-mile radius of responsible for miles deserves the same and worse. I don't regret a thing.
Barlowe, don't mistake me for having a weak stomach over that pervert's death. What I'm saying is you arrived at the conclusion we were both heading towards a little early is all.
Well, John B., it's hardly my fault if you're slow.
Is it your fault I can barely lift this leg, and it feels like I'm breathing gravel every time I inhale?
Keeping your ass safe ain't my responsibility neither. Maybe if you'd handled yourself a little better with them hillbillies, you wouldn't have gravel in your gut. And without my help, your leg would be much, much worse.
Well, forgive me, sir, for working on my diplomacy these past decades, rather than continue to solve every problem I encounter with my fists like I'm a gosh darn 14-year-old.
Diplomacy, there you go again, always with the big words, always trying to upshow me with your college education and your 2 terms of service. I've seen things, John B., that you wouldn't believe, and I don't appreciate how you talk down to me.
Yeah, well, I saw a few things you might have missed in France.
Far, far in the distance, a branch snaps. Roll a perception check.
23.
7.
Both of you strain your ears, but there's only silence.
Shh, now quit your hollering, John B. We ain't alone in these woods.
I know that, I know. In any case, we can't stay here.
Barlowe grabs his hammer off of a rock and tucks it into his belt.
John B. puts his pistol back in his shoulder holster.
All right, John B., now keep your head down. We're gonna head up mountain where them telegraph lines go.
Sounds like a plan.
A crunching of leaves in the distance interrupts. Both of you make a perception check.
Nat 20.
20.
A few 100 feet down the hill, the wind starts carrying a conversation up to John B. and Barlowe's ears, where the thinning trees stretch upwards like clawing fingers, swaying side to side.
It sounds like there's 3. I'm going to take position a little ways up the hill. Have you got a place to hide, Barlowe?
Mountains will provide, John B. Barlowe slinks off into the underbrush and begins burying himself with leaves and brush.
John B. circles around the mouth of the cave off to the side and ducks behind a log.
Both of you roll stealth checks.
18.
9.
Oh boy, I'm excited to get my teeth finally. I think it's within a matter of hours. The moonlight's gonna shine down a little bit harsher, and there goes.
You're gonna look real good with your teeth, Paul. You're gonna look great. Job's gonna look even better with your teeth, right?
Oh, I'm gonna look so good.
2 young men led by an older man appear out of the trees, sniffing the air and walking around like feral beasts, knees bent and noses to the sky, though they appear to just be normal men.
All right, boys. Eyes closed. Just use the senses of the nose. Follow you to your prey.
Wait. I think I smell something. Hello? Show yourself!
What y'all doing around this hall?
Point me in the direction, boys. Daddy's got a play.
I think it's over there by that log. Let's go check that log out over there. Look, I see some disturbance. Oh man, I can see so good out here.
I smell blood. Fresh.
The 3 begin to creep towards the log that John B. is hiding behind, passing Barlowe in the brush unnoticed.
John B. waits for them to get just barely past Barlowe's hiding spot before jumping up from behind the log, hands raised.
Look, Paul, there's one of them now.
Oh my word! Thank heaven the 3 of you came by! Come help me, I've been bit by a snake!
Roll a deception check.
16.
The 3 stop in their tracks, but the older of the 3 speaks up.
Oh, is that so? Well, let's see that bite then.
But I ain't gonna get snake bit.
Shut up, Job. You're not gonna get snake bit.
The three men begin to creep closer ominously.
John B. lifts up the pant leg on his cut leg, revealing the bloodied bandage.
Make a deception check with advantage.
17. I did my best bandaging it, but it is throbbing something fierce. And John B. takes one exaggerated limp step towards the trio.
Pa, he's snake bit. Look right there. Look, he's got a snake bite.
Oh, I told you about the snake bite.
All right then, boys. No pre-moonlight snack. Just bash 'em and bring 'em back like we was told.
With that threat, Barlowe explodes out of the leaves and goes to hammer all three one at a time.
Roll attacks with advantage.
18, 24, nat 20.
3 hits.
10 damage on the first person, 8 damage on the second, and 18 on the third.
All three fall into the leaves, tumbling over themselves on the hill, eventually regaining their footing. But very quickly, as soon as they reset themselves, their wounds begin to sear at the point of contact, their skin bubbling, all three crying out in agony. One of them appears to have got it worse than the other two.
My face!
And his skin melts off of his skull, dropping the body limp into the dirt.
John B. rushes toward one of the guys that's still standing, knife first. 23.
Hit.
4 damage. Aided by the slope of the hill, John B. speeds up and tackles the man from behind, bringing them both to the earth. Before the guy can react, John B. drives the pocket knife into the side of his neck.
As the knife enters, the skin around the man's neck bubbles, revealing muscle and sinew. The man screams and goes still. The oldest man looks around frantically and screams to the sky.
My boys!
The older man dives at John B., who is resting on top of his deceased son. With a vicious kick, he knocks John B. aside. John B. takes 7 damage, bringing him to 53 points of health. The man then lunges atop John B. and attempts to pin him to the ground.
17.
John B. shirks him off to the side.
Barlowe goes to straddle the man and bring the hammer down on his head. 11.
The man rolls out of the way almost easily, and as he does, you see that his eyes flash yellow for just a second.
Barlowe follows up with 2 more swings, trying to hit the man who's rolling around in the dirt. 21, 24.
2 hits.
20 damage.
Describe it.
Barlowe puts his big boot on the man's chest to stabilize him and brings the hammer down twice into his chest, caving it in. Get over here!
The skin bubbles and peels away as the hammer enters his chest.
John B. slowly rises to his feet. You must be quite the prolific businessman, given how well practiced you are with that there hammer.
Barlowe flips the hammer a few times in his hand. John B., we'd have never met again if I wasn't excellent at what I do.
The 3 bodies lie still in the leaves, a little bit of silent smoke wisping off into the sky. Both of you roll an investigation check.
14.
7.
Barlowe leans down in the leaves, inspecting the bodies a little more closely. It only takes you a couple of seconds to notice that all 3 have large canine-shaped bites in their arm, all of which appear very, very fresh.
Well, John B., them pictures in that book you showed me are correct. These boys was on their way to become whatever it was that turned Miles. They got what they deserved.
It's good to know you can tell if a man is one of them by hitting them with the silver. See those burn marks? Didn't happen back in town.
The weight of that realization hangs in the air for a moment. Both of you roll a survival check.
22.
6.
Barlowe, scanning the horizon, almost immediately locates the black telegraph wire against the dark night sky.
That telegraph the mayor was talking about is off that way about northwest. I say if we follow that against the night sky, we can head up mountain, find where them Talbots at.
Let's go.
Both of you roll a stealth check.
14.
19.
Following the wire to its end is uneventful, though once in a while, strange sounds will make John B. and Barlowe twist their heads around frantically looking for the source, though none is ever revealed. The long black wire finally meets its end in the roof of a small shack in a small clearing, made entirely of old rotted wood. 2 figures stand over a third that appears to be on their knees, bound and gagged. A couple of horses tied to a low-hanging tree branch shuffle restlessly on the other side of the shed.
This is normally how I like 'em. Gagged.
I was listening to him wriggle. I was listening to him for a moment.
You're trying to say something, sweetheart? I can't understand you. Should I take that out? Would you like that?
Bet your mouth worked better when we cut it open.
The woman turns up an oil lamp, illuminating the face of Mayor Buck. He looks panicked up at the two, blood streaming from a broken nose and split lip, but he is silenced by a thick wad of cloth in his mouth. The man gets down into a crouch next to Mayor Buck and appears to be sniffing around his neck.
I'm hungry, Bertha.
Not yet. He fucked up, didn't you, Mr. Mayor? I normally go younger, but you'll make do.
She gon' get you. She gon' get you.
2 people. That's all we ask. 2 people. How many in that pathetic town you have, huh? Few hundred? Oh, but 2 is just too much, oh yeah. You would have made a good one.
The woman steps forward and pulls the cloth out of the mayor's mouth.
No, please, come on. I did everything you said. I did exactly what you said. I deserve this. I deserve it, goddammit.
Bertha walks forward and caresses Mayor Buck's face for just a second, wiping away a panicked tear.
Oh, you know, you're right. You do deserve this.
And in one fluid motion, plunges a hand into the mayor's trachea and with a quick pull, tears it out.
No! No, please, no!
Red spatters the leaves, and the woman immediately cups her hand to her mouth.
Sugary.
Harold dives on the mayor's body and begins to tear it asunder.
Save me a calf.
The two drag the body off away from the oil lamp's light into the shadow. John B. and Barlowe can just barely make out their outline, but they do determine that as soon as the two leave the light, they appear much larger and have a much less defined human outline.
Barlowe, there's horses on the other side of that clearing.
Shit, John B., I ain't going for them horses.
John B. and Barlowe cut their whispering short as the tearing noises stop. Both of you make a stealth check.
18.
5. In order to succeed the stealth check, instead of failing it, John B. makes a sacrifice.
With a shock of adrenaline, not thinking anything through, John B. reaches into his pocket as Harold and Bertha dart into the oil lamp's light and frantically look around.
Do you hear that?
You smell that?
John B. darts into his pocket, grabs the first thing he can find with his hands, and throws it as hard as he can at the oil lamp. Roll an attack roll.
16.
The oil lamp shatters, and the wooden table it's resting on bursts into flames.
Put it out! Put it out!
John B. realizes he has thrown the silver pocket knife. Illuminated by the now bright and raging fire, Harold and Bertha's visage becomes clear.
Harold wears an oversized maroon velveteen suit that is absolutely decimated with wear. He's clearly been wearing it for months, if not years. His hair is crudely parted down the center, shellacked down with spit. He is foaming into his thick beard, and his eyes are bloodshot.
Bertha, wearing overalls and a flannel which are much too big for her, stands at about 5'2". She has short, bright blonde hair that falls to her shoulders in tight ringlets, and the first few buttons of her flannel are open, revealing an egregious amount of cleavage. She tries to stomp out the fire with her bare feet.
Barlowe surveys the skyline, looking at what's beyond the shed.
Roll a perception check.
17.
It takes your eyes a moment to adjust, but far, far in the distance, you think you can make out a slight glowing of a dark-colored structure reflecting moonlight back up into the sky. But you're not certain.
I stand corrected, John B. We gotta go for them horses. We ain't gonna cover that much ground on foot.
Now seems like as good a time as any.
Barlowe and John B. attempt to skirt the outside of the clearing to the other side of the shed where the horses are.
Both of you make a stealth check.
7.
Botch.
Barlowe and John B. dart out of the tree line, and as soon as they do, both of them stumble over a massive root sticking out of the ground. And Harold and Bertha spot them immediately.
A couple of jaspers.
Seconds.
Both of you make an animal handling check.
12.
17.
John B. and Barlowe almost effortlessly make it up onto the horses, which are saddleless, and are just about to take off when they realize that they are tied to the low-hanging branch of the tree.
Couple of peckerwoods want to steal Mama's horses.
Ooh, I'll count to 10. Fear makes them sweeter. 1, 2, 3.
Both of you make a sleight of hand check.
8.
10.
The knots are tight and the first attempt fails.
4, 5, 6, 7,
13.
8,
Nat 20. Got him.
9. Run.
The knots come loose and they kick the horses into gear.
Hip, yo!
The horses take off through the forest following a very skinny dirt path. The horses are moving at a blistering pace, but behind you, getting louder and louder, you hear crashing through the brush. Both of you make a perception check.
27.
17.
Briefly looking back, they see massive shapes galloping low to the ground behind them, shrouded in darkness. The only thing they can see poking through the black are 4 yellow eyes, bouncing up and down and getting larger every second.
John B. pulls his revolver and empties it.
Bullets clatter to the ground behind them.
He loads it with 6 silver bullets, turns around, and fires at their pursuers. 12.
One of the bullets goes wide, the silver whizzing through the air above the monsters' heads.
John B. tries again. 10.
The second bullet also goes wide. Both pursuing beasts appear to have their attention grabbed by the bullets whizzing above their heads. And they stop for a moment, peering behind them, just for a split second, and then dart into the tree line on either side of the path. You can hear crashing through the forest on either side of you. The trees end for a moment, and you take off across a clearing, dust rising in the moonbeams. Both of you make a perception check.
28.
5.
Barlowe spots one of the beasts off to the left, darting inward towards the pair. As it gets closer and the moon just barely illuminates its form, you see Harold, appearing completely human. But as you gaze at the ground, you see that his shadow is one of a monstrous humanoid wolf. And he dives at both horses mid-stride. Both of you make a dexterity save, Barlowe with advantage.
11.
22.
Harold leaps, makes contact with the rump of Barlowe's horse, and digs large human incisors into the creature's skin. The horse begins to whinny in pain and stumble as Harold rips a strip of flesh off the creature, giggling madly. The horse begins to pitch forward. Barlowe, make an acrobatics check.
8.
Barlowe launches forward, crashes into the ground, and skids a ways. Barlowe takes 8 damage, bringing him down to 58 points of health. Harold leaps off of the horse.
Harold's eyes glint yellow in the light as he plunges his right hand down towards Barlowe. 25.
Barlowe takes 7 damage as nails penetrate the skin on his chest, lifting him upward onto his feet.
Rip the bones out like a fish.
Bringing him down to 51 points of health.
John B. doesn't stop galloping, but wheels his horse around toward Harold, taking aim and firing twice with his revolver. 13. 17.
The first bullet whizzes overhead, but the second bullet slams into Harold's shoulder, knocking him back.
6 damage. John B. steers the horse by Barlowe and extends a hand, getting ready to swing the big man up onto the horse.
Make a perception check.
12.
Bertha comes exploding out of the darkness. Make a dexterity save.
21.
John B. pulls the reins on the horse, and Bertha flies in front as the animal rears.
My turn with the big one. You go for the copper.
Barlowe attempts to swing himself up on John B.'s horse.
Make an acrobatics check.
16.
Barlowe just barely gets up onto the back of the horse, but Harold lunges from behind.
17.
Barlowe takes 9 damage as a clawed hand scrapes his side, bringing him down to 42 points of health.
Harold snarls and snaps his teeth at John B.'s injured leg, trying to take a chunk out of the calf. Botch.
Harold misjudges his lunge, and the horse clobbers him with a heavy hoof, knocking him into the dirt. He takes 6 damage.
John B. wheels the horse back around and heads for the trees, with him and Barlowe atop it.
Following their original path, leaving the 2 feral hillbillies in the dust, Barlowe and John B. begin to hear the roaring of a river ahead. Soon, they're at its banks, and the horse panics, stopping. John B., make an animal handling check.
17.
The horse refuses to budge at the water's edge. On the other side of the river is a small sign that reads, The Maison, and in the distance is a massive 2-floor bungalow, painted white, with a wraparound porch and a dark green roof that glows silver from the moonshine.
John B. turns the horse upriver and kicks it. Yeah!
It takes off.
Once they're a ways upriver, he stops the horse and dismounts. Barlowe, come on!
Don't have to tell me twice.
John B. slaps the horse's rump, sending it further up the river. He jumps in the river and begins his attempt to swim across.
Oh shit. Okay, here I go. Barlowe dives in after John B., trying to angle his trajectory to the other side of the river.
Both of you make a constitution save.
12.
11.
Barlowe grabs onto a couple of large, grooved rocks and hulks his way across the river, coming up on the other bank. John B. just barely misses the rock he needs to grab. The water takes him a little ways downstream, and he impacts on a massive, jagged stone protruding from the water. He takes 21 damage, taking him down to 32 points of health. John B. washes ashore a little ways down. Harold and Bertha shuffle on the banks of the river on the other side.
Make 'em come back. Make 'em come back.
Oh, well, we know where they're going. We'll see you later. I'm looking at you, big one.
I'm gonna tell my mama on you.
Oh, she won't like that. I might.
They slink back into the woods, and as they disappear into the shadow, their eyes turn yellow and then blink out of existence.
John B., you okay?
Depends on your definition of the word.
Barlowe cracks his back and trudges over towards John B., helping him up out of the dirt. Oh, come on!
2 wars and 10 years as sheriff, and I ain't never taken this kind of beating.
Well, John B., there's only one way up the mountain I can see. It's back up towards that sign.
Lights on in the house ahead. Those 2 behind. I don't suppose you saw a bridge further up the river, round when we jumped in.
I sure as hell didn't, John B., but I don't know this holler like I do Goggins. I'd bet dollars to donuts that they know a way across that we don't. They's coming for us hard.
That was my thinking as well. House it is.
John B. and Barlowe clamber over the riverbank. An old, rickety fence traces a winding dirt path on either side, little vegetable patches lining each side of the track. A bent scarecrow hangs from a post in one such patch, silhouetted by some of the lights in the house, which shine through the windows. Tall trees stand parallel to the house, angling against the sloped ground. Wispy black clouds begin to eclipse the moon slightly, muting the landscape.
John B. casts his eyes around for anything he and Barlowe can use.
Roll an investigation check.
13.
Barlowe does the same. 16.
The only thing of note that both of you find is an old, rusty pitchfork sticking out of the soil.
John B., you might could use this for stabbing if you want to.
Or as a walking stick, shape I'm in. John B. takes the pitchfork and pulls his revolver.
Barlowe pulls his hammer out of his belt, readies his silver knuckles, and checks the door.
The door is unlocked and swings open with a long, loud creak. A few bare light bulbs swing from the ceiling from long cords. They move gently with the wind.
John B., why don't you take the back door? I'll go in the front.
John B. nods and starts to head around to the back, hugging the wall.
John B., walking along the exterior of the house, comes across a large basement door that leads deep into the ground.
John B. quietly tries the basement door.
Roll a stealth check.
14.
There's a quiet rattling of chains as you pull the door and realize that it's been padlocked shut. Traveling further along the outskirts of the house, you find an open window leading into what looks like a large kitchen.
John B. looks for signs of life.
No movement whatsoever. A few cleavers swing from the kitchen ceiling.
John B. lays his rusty pitchfork on the ground and quietly enters through the window.
Roll a stealth check.
12.
John B. clambers up, accidentally kicks a bucket off of the counter, and it clatters onto the floor, but there's no response.
John B. grabs one of the hanging cleavers.
Cutting back to Barlowe.
At the sound of the bucket, Barlowe freezes, holds for a tense beat waiting for life, and upon seeing none, he proceeds further into the house.
There's a staircase leading to the second floor and the entrance to a very fancy-looking parlor to his right.
Barlowe creeps into the parlor.
Glass doors swing open slowly and silently. Couches with dark red upholstery and ornate wooden tables on either side fleck the room in a hodgepodge, disorganized fashion. All the decor seems to be from 1910 or earlier, and above a stone mantel is a gorgeous portrait, glaringly out of place in the dusty house. A regal-looking woman in a long black dress sits with a straight back in a mahogany chair. The plaque underneath reads Persephone Talbot.
There you are, you old hag.
Cutting back to John B. in the kitchen.
John B. turns left, heading for the sitting room.
Roll a perception check.
22.
John B. wipes a little dust off a baby grand piano, walks over to a leather-bound dictionary on a pedestal, flicking a few pages before raising his eyes to a bookshelf and spots a binding that reads Talbot. Pulling the book off the shelf and opening a page reveals a family tree with several names towards the top, dating back all the way to the early 1800s and ending with Persephone Talbot, under which you can read Bertha Talbot and Harold Talbot. But there does not appear to be any husband or father delineated. Next to Bertha and Harold, underneath Persephone, are several blank spaces where it appears names have yet to be written.
John B. rips out the page and puts it in his jacket pocket.
Barlowe and John B. eventually meet up on the bottom floor at the base of the staircase leading upwards.
Find anything, John B?
Barlowe, take a look at this. He unfolds the family tree page.
What kind of gone-up family tree is this?
Now, this ain't a normal family tree. If she's the sort of mother wolf, anything she bites, she must look at as one of her children. Remember how that boy kept talking about Mama? He was talking about Persephone Talbot.
They must have been angling on making Miles one of her kin.
So to speak.
The two head up the stairs, getting about halfway up. Both of you make a perception check.
16.
19.
John B. stops Barlowe in his tracks.
Shh. Wait.
You hear voices approaching from outside.
It's burning. It hurts. Get it out. Get it out.
A minute or two of whining is fine, but it's getting on my damn nerves now. Shut up. We're here.
John B. and Barlowe dash up the stairs and around the corner into the hallway.
Both of you make a stealth check.
19.
20.
Both of them make it behind the corner as the door bursts open, Bertha dragging Harold inside by the ear. Immediately upon entering, Bertha stiffens and sniffs the air.
You smell that?
That's in Mama's house.
Bertha slowly begins to creep back into the house, into the kitchen, Harold in tow.
Ready or not?
Back in the kitchen, you hear the squelching of flesh and a yelp from Harold.
I got it out.
Downstairs, upstairs. up.
Barlowe and John B. creep further down the hallway, staying as silent as possible, heading in the opposite direction of Harold and Bertha.
You hear footsteps begin to creak up the stairs as they ascend.
Oh, don't be afraid. I just want to keep you for a little bit. Cut your heels. Let you loose every now and then so I can chase you and bring you back.
The lights cast a shadow of a dark, shaggy head with pointed ears on the wall.
And then I'm gonna eat you. Until there's nothing left and I couldn't even find you.
And then Bertha hits the top of the staircase, and you see her turn her coquettish head to the side and to the other side, looking for you both. Barlowe and John B., finding a side room, wait with bated breath. Bertha heads in the opposite direction first.
Barlowe looks around for a knick-knack in the room.
He finds a small music box.
He gets a good grip on it, opens the door a crack, and tosses it past the room, in the opposite direction of Bertha, making a loud noise against the wall.
Bertha's footsteps stop creaking, and she darts to where the object impacts.
Okay, great. We know you can throw things. Now where the fuck are ya?
Here! Barlowe explodes out of the door and takes 3 big swings with his hammer at Bertha.
John B. follows, firing 2 shots with his revolver.
Make attacks with advantage.
19, 14, 24.
3 hits.
17 and 18.
2 hits.
23 damage total.
8 damage total. John B. takes 2 more shots with the revolver. 18 and 14.
2 hits.
11 damage. John B., down to 2 shots, refills his chamber.
Bertha, they up there!
Harold stomps up the stairs, and he is immediately on the second floor, looking at the chaos.
Bertha's mouth transforms from a sadistic grin into a gaping maw as she begins to undergo a full transformation. A huge, hulking werewolf now standing before them. She locks eyes with Barlowe, and she attempts to dig her claws into him, dragging him into a different room.
16. Barlowe ducks the grab from Bertha.
Bertha tries again.
10.
Bertha picks Barlowe up and launches him into the room. She dives after Barlowe.
As she passes, John B. lashes out with the cleaver. 18. 2 damage.
Bertha ignores the slash as she follows Barlowe into the room, slamming him on an old, dusty bed.
Barlowe pops up ready for action and throws a left hook with his silver knuckles before throwing another hammer strike with his right. 17. 16.
2 hits.
19 damage.
Describe it.
As Bertha's snapping jaws dive at Barlowe's throat, Barlowe throws an uppercut with his knuckles, knocking her back. He then reels up and takes out one of her legs with his hammer.
She goes to the floor and puts a hand up, and you see a shadow cast on the wall of a small girl.
Wait! Don't do it!
Funny. I'm sure Miles said something similar. Barlowe drives the hammer home.
John B. backs his way down the hall to the room that Barlowe and Bertha have disappeared into, firing at Harold as he goes. 14. 26.
2 hits.
14 damage.
Harold transforms as he sprints down the hallway at John B.
His bones crack and elongate, and he lunges with a drooling mouth agape.
11, 24.
His jaws snap just above John B's head, but then a massive foot punches John B through the dry, rotted wood. He takes 10 damage, bringing him down to 22 points of health. Harold, the snarling werewolf, howls to the sky, and you see several of his wounds begin to suture up.
Barlowe kneels down and inspects Bertha's corpse a little closer.
Roll an investigation check.
17.
The wolf-like corpse lays still. Drool drips from the mouth.
Barlowe takes his hammer and chips out one of her teeth.
With a squelch, it comes loose.
He puts it in his pocket.
John B. takes 2 more shots at the werewolf cornering him. 11 and 22.
One of the bullets connects.
6 damage.
Frenzied with grief and pain, Harold attempts to sink his teeth into John B's neck. Botch.
John B rolls out of the way in time and Harold resets himself for a second lunge.
Harold attempts to bite again. 25.
Harold's teeth sink into John B's shoulder. John B takes 15 damage, bringing him down to 7 points of health.
Hearing John B's screams, Barlowe bursts out of the room and attempts to grapple Harold off of John B, throwing him onto the ground. 21.
Harold easily shirks Barlowe off.
Barlowe takes the hit and swings his hammer twice. 21 and 28.
2 hits.
15 damage.
John B spits out some blood and whacks Harold in the face with his cleaver. 13.
Miss.
Almost resigned and almost out of silver bullets, he raises the revolver and fires once. 20.
Hit.
7 damage.
The werewolf howls in pain.
Sensing a kill, Harold takes 2 huge swipes with his claws. 10, 9.
John B desperately rolls from side to side, dodging each swipe of the razor-sharp claws. The werewolf, furious, drool whipping across the ceiling and the walls, is in a blind rage.
Barlowe throws his large arms around the wolf's shoulders and attempts to bring him down to the ground. Nat 20. Barlowe pins the werewolf to the ground with his knees on the wolf's shoulders and wails on his face with his hand and hammer. 22, 19. 17 damage.
Describe it.
Barlowe beats Harold's head into a bloody pulp, his face being sprayed with steaming hot blood as he does.
John B sits, leaning against the interior of the wall. Well, goddamn fucking hell, I'll be a fucking son of a bitch.
Ain't no hearth at home without a bit of coal. Without sinning, no redemption of the soul. White needs a black, but black don't need the white. 'Cause if you lose that darkness, where else can you hide? Can you catch me, friend, before I'm gone? Got your assignment, I'll need confinement for too long. Take your action, friend, and keep your weapons drawn, my friend. If you can't, then I will chase you. If I chase you, you won't make it till dawn.
This has been a Hero Club production, produced by Nick Williams and George Primavera, with associate producers Marty Abbey Schneider and Dylan McCullum. Voice acting by George Primavera, Nick Williams, Marty Abbey Schneider, Hannah Fagerbacke, Ryan Bowers, Dylan McCullum, and Gabe Greenspan. Theme song written by Matthew McCullum and performed by Nick Williams. Special thanks to Ben Doyle and Kevin McLeod for their incredible music, Mage Hand Press for their genius D&D 5th edition homebrew, and Marty Abbey Schneider for his amazing artwork. Thanks for listening, and welcome to the club.
A sorry sight, my friend. If you can't, then I will chase you. If I chase you, friend, you won't live to see the light.
And has what can only be described as an anime amount of cleavage.
An anime amount of cleavage.